What is going on in Ukraine? This straightforward question has so different answers in the Western media and inside Russia. In today's video I'm going to show you how Russian state media is portraying the events in Ukraine during Russian special military operation. Yes, that is still called special military operation in my country. Hi, my name is Niki. A good part of this channel is me talking about what the heck is happening there in Russia related to the war in Ukraine. Last year I filmed multiple videos in this What Russian Media Tell Us About series, and today we're gonna wear that Russian babushka's hat once again. And we are going to see how Russian media cover 4 different stories that took place recently. That's Ukrainian counteroffensive, that's war actions inside Russian border, that's Kakhovka dam breach, and a new trial on Alexei Navalny. Niki from the future is here. I actually recorded this video before Yevgeny Prigozhin coup, and I wasn't sure if I should upload this video or not, and then I rewatched my draft edit and I understood that this one is a good stuff that might help you understand what causes some Russian people, just like one of my grandmothers, fully support Vladimir Putin and hate and blame Ukrainian people for death of Russian people. Yeah, you heard me right here. That's what Russian TV does to our people. Coming back to Niki. So the plan is simple. I have my laptop with 2 websites opened. First is the biggest Russian TV channel, Первый канал. That's what my babushka watches often, unfortunately. And also I opened Yandex, which is basically a Russian Google. We're gonna watch a few short reports on Первый канал and then gonna Google about some major news on Yandex. So Первый канал, or first channel if I translate that into English. Last year they went all in with brainwashing and showing their propaganda to people of Russia. They literally had news reports going non-stop for like 14-15 hours a day. This year it's a bit different, they have less news, but still they have 7 different news reports every single day. The first thing I wanna show you is the biggest disaster happened in Ukraine recently. I'm talking about Kakhovka dam breach that took place at June 6, by the time when it was controlled entirely by Russian military. So let's see what our lovely Russian news have to say about that. Ukrainian nationalists launched attacks using heavy weapons on the Kakhovka hydroelectric power station. This led to the destruction of 3 sections and uncontrolled discharge of water began. The first information about this attack appeared early in the morning, and the mayor of Novokakhovka said that is the result of the shelling done by the Ukrainian armed forces. They were launching up to 120 missiles per day, most of which are American HIMARS aimed specifically at the dam. It is obvious that the armed forces of Ukraine, continuing this shelling, have not yet abandoned their attempts to cause a catastrophe in our region. So, according to Russian news, that's the job of Ukrainian nationalists who performed a terrorist attack on that Kakhovka dam, and according to that Russian news reporter, that was done by Ukrainian military using American weapons and stuff. Such a clear picture delivered to most of homes across Russia. I'm pretty sure that in your local news you will hear entirely different story. When I try to find this story in foreign media, obviously I see that Ukrainians, they blame Russia for blowing the dam, and most of international media, they write about the fact of the dam breach and the fact that Russia and Ukraine blame each other. I was able to see the difference on this Ground News website. It's a platform that I started to use last year when I got more interested in following global news. And Ground News is a perfect place for understanding how international stories are being covered around the globe. That's what we are doing with this What Russian Media Tell Us series, right? So not only I can compare the news headlines, I also can see extra information on the news sources, such as political bias and ownership and factuality. When I hear something big happened around the world, Ground News is my first step for learning about that issue. Like if I want to read about recent updates about Ukraine war, I search for related stories. And first I see top news about that, then blind spot section, which is an interesting feature that shows which news stories are being underreported by the left or the right. And then there's lots of recent stories that I can scroll and find the ones that catch my interest. That's something that you will never be able to see on Russian media, at least controlled by our government. Go to ground.news/Niki Proshin to check it out. You will get unlimited access to all the features I showed you today for as little as $5 a month. Thanks to Ground News for sponsoring this video, and now let's move to the next story. And the next story is gonna be about Ukrainian counteroffensive. I'll try to search among all these news reports for counteroffensive in Russian, and apparently there are only 2 results that match. One comes from June 9, another comes comes on June 15th. So this short report from June 9 says that there is some footage of destroyed Western technology or vehicles that were used in Kiev counteroffensive try. And this report from June 15 says about Western media started to write more often about serious problems of Kiev army during counteroffensive attempts. But the thing is, there are more reports about this thing almost every single day. Russian news tell about that. They just don't use this word counteroffensive often. But if I change this word into attack, there will be like a lot of reports like that, and it says that Russian Ministry of Defense tells us about useless attempts of Ukrainian nationalists to attack Russian forces in the area of special military operation. Let's actually watch this one.
Hello,
it's time for news on Channel 1. We will tell you all about the most important events right now. The Ministry of Defense today spoke about unsuccessful attempts of Ukrainian nationalists to attack Russian troops in the special operation zone. As Sergei Shoigu stated, the radicals continue their attempts to attack in the Donetsk, South Donetsk and Zaporozhye directions. They use a large number of Western weapons, and elite formations are involved, which were trained under the guidance of NATO specialists. In addition, Sergei Shoigu announced Kyiv's intentions to use HIMARS and Storm Shadow missiles for strikes on Russian territory. He warned how we will respond if this happens. Some interesting stuff about Sergei Shoigu. After Evgeny Prigozhin's coup, he actually disappeared from any news reports, and people had no idea what happened to Sergei Shoigu and to a few other members of Russian Ministry of Defense. They just disappeared from all news reports, except a few random news reports at June 26, after which Sergei Shoigu again disappeared, and now, a week after, nobody knows what happened to Russian Minister of Defense and other people that Evgeny Prigozhin blamed for terrible situation on the front lines. So what they basically say is that bad Ukrainian nationalists try to attack Russian forces in the area of that special military operation, and Russian forces are dealing with that well. That's actually a very big main narrative in Russian news since the very beginning of this war in Ukraine. Our government is actually pretty skilled at making people feel and think that everything is alright, especially people in Moscow and St. Petersburg. If you're somebody living there, you barely can notice anything wrong about this war in Ukraine. And in this context of our government keeping everything normal for their citizens, the next story is actually sounding just crazy, because last month we started to have some updates about war action, not just in Ukraine, not just in special military operation zone according to the language of our government, but we started to see news and some action right inside of Russian territory, and there was like not so much official reaction about that. Let's actually see what do our media tell about that. Again, here's a lot of different reports, and now we are searching about Belgorodskaya Oblast. That is the region of Russia, like Russian territory, that was involved into the war action. And indeed, we have a lot of results over here, 21 results about this inquiry, and the most recent one comes from June 19th. It says that in Belgorod region, there are 8 people who got hurt as a result of Ukrainian shellings. Perhaps this one might be the most interesting report about Belgorodskaya Oblast. It says about a Russian president telling about the problem of shelling of Belgorodskaya region will be solved. So let's actually see what does Russian president has to say about that. Another issue related to Ukrainian counteroffensive is questions about the situation in the border areas of the Belgorod region, which now are under shelling from Ukraine. These attacks, as our president said, are connected with an attempt by the enemy to divert the forces of the Russian military from other directions, which are critical for Kyiv. Vladimir Putin assured that the problem of shelling of the Belgorod region and other regions of Russia will be resolved. So, summarizing what Vladimir Putin just said is, we are good and Ukraine is bad. We are very good and they are very bad. We want really good things to happen to Russia and to Ukraine, and they want terrible things to happen. We are good and they are bad. This kind of meeting with war journalists is actually quite interesting thing, because since the very beginning of the war, Vladimir Putin haven't had any meetings, any events like that, but apparently this month he was sitting and talking to them, describing the details behind this special military operation. Yo, people, there's like 69% of you watch me without subscribing, so please help me change that. Go click that subscribe button so you will not miss my new videos about Russia and about life around the globe. Thank you. Our last story, that is Alexei Navalny and his latest trial. And specifically on this first channel, Первый канал, I didn't really see any news about Navalny. Like, a new trial on Navalny is happening literally these days, and if I look anything about himself here, I wonder if anything pops up. The latest news about Navalny was actually from April 4th of this year, and that was not about himself actually, it's kind of unrelated news. Like here you can see FBK Navalnova, it's actually the organization that Navalny created, unrelated to his personality and this given news. And the latest news report about Navalny was actually in December of 2021, so long ago. It's like so many things happened related to Navalny since that time, but apparently there is nothing, absence, absolute silence about that. So I think here we should go to Yandex and just type about it. Like, what if somebody, like a Russian granny, my granny, wants to learn who is Navalny and what is happening to him? Новости о Navalnym. The first website we actually see official website of Navalny, Navalny.com, and then rbk.ru, a Russian-controlled media, MSK1, I guess something related to Moscow. This one is Kazakh media, Telegram channel of Navalny, RIA Novosti is another Russian-controlled media. These results are actually better than I expected. You literally can see the Navalny website and his Telegram group. You can see Meduza, which is not controlled by our government, and even Navalny YouTube channel that has a lot of documentaries about like anti-corruption documentaries, with the most popular one having 127 million views about Putin's palace. But anyway, today we are seeing some news about Navalny. So over here, RBK Media, rbc.ru, it actually has a lot of news about Navalny and his team. For example, this is the latest news about Navalny's trial coming from June 19th, and it provides some facts about the case. Another news is about a member of Navalny team who was arrested for 7.5 years of jail time. Here's news from June 4th, that is the day of Navalny's birthday, and we had some protests across Russia during that day, people being detained on these protests, so you actually can get some information about here. That's something what I might hear in foreign news, and apparently on this RBK as well. And here the most recent news coming from June 20th is actually quite interesting. There is statistic about who do Russian people trust? And here the first 3 people that absolute majority of Russian trust are Vladimir Putin, President of Russia, Sergei Lavrov, Russian Minister of Foreign Affairs, and Sergei Shoigu, our Minister of Defense. It also says that Yevgeny Prigozhin, the head of Wagner Group, got to the top 5 of this list, and we got this news in our search inquiry about Alexei Navalny because he's staying on spot number 21 in this list. Well, here's another website. I have no idea what is like Moskva Online. Most likely it's owned by government, although I'm not quite sure about that. There are some news about Alexei Navalny too. And from what I can see, there's a lot of details, even some pictures from that trial process. Pretty interesting. And on RIA Novosti, which is also sponsored by our government, a lot of news about that as well. I actually have no idea why that's so big difference in the news on TV and on online newspapers. Perhaps because the audience is quite different and that's kind of useless to hide such stuff, to be completely silent about such stuff online, while for people who watch news only on Russian TV, it's possible maybe to hide a part of the world from them. Actually, it's the biggest part of the world. Anyway, and now let's come to the conclusion part. I think that was very interesting to see what exactly do Russian people see on their TV, on their news reports. Some news, they go so different with each other, like the news about that Kakhovka dam. Like, Ukrainian side says it's all done by Russian forces, and Russia says that the dam breach was caused by Ukrainian side. So two complete opposite points of views. And we also saw that some topics, some stories are just completely blocked by that Russian Первый канал. You basically cannot see anything related to Alexei Navalny there, and the information you basically receive there is pretty one-sided. Another point I want to make here is that the amount of propaganda that we see from Russian media, controlled by our dear government, just shows that they actually care a lot about what do people think about their actions. And here I'm talking not about people who are politically active or who showed any kind of anti-war protest or anything like that. Here I talk about just ordinary Russian people who don't care about politics at all and who actually support the actions of our president. There are a lot of people like that in Russia truly supporting our ruling party, our president, and what our government cannot afford is to make those people disappointed, to make those people think that Vladimir Putin is doing something wrong. Because if that really happens, there might be some big changes inside Russia. Well, I hope you got my point, and I hope you also found this video useful. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to my channel, and also don't forget that my channel is not entirely about updates about Russia. I have a variety of content that I post here. I'm going to a new country for me, to the Kingdom of Cambodia, never been there, and I'm gonna film some stuff there. Hope it will be interesting episode as well. So thank you so much for your support, спасибо, and пока.